I found out he changed my phone's emergency contact from my mom to him after I collapsed in a Target parking lot and paramedics couldn't reach my family. Yeah, that's how I discovered I wasn't just dating a man. I was dating a five-star general in the silent war he was waging against my independence. My name's Lena. I'm 29. And I swear I wasn't always this jumpy about guys in polos who smile too much and just want what's best for you. But after Ben, I get chills when the barista says my name too confidently. It started the way it always does, with charm. Ben was the kind of guy who made waiting in line for coffee feel like an indie rom-com meet-cute. He joked with the cashier, paid for my latte, and somehow convinced me to go on a hike that same weekend. I didn't even like hiking. I told myself I'd give him 2 dates, tops. I ended up giving him 3 years, a move across the state, a list of friends I no longer talked to, and a personality that barely felt like mine by the end of it. I should have run the first time he used my anxiety against me, not in a dramatic, scream-in-my-face kind of way. No, he was subtler than that, a master craftsman of guilt. It was more like, Lena, I just worry when you drive alone. You know how you get, or, do you really want to go to that party? All those people? You know it's not good for your heart. I thought he cared. I wanted to believe he cared. But when I finally got around to checking my phone's medical settings after that whole collapse fiasco, after the EMT said, sorry, we could only reach Ben, he's listed here, I saw her name gone. My mom, replaced, quietly, without asking. And you know what he said when I confronted him? That's what people do when they love someone, they take care of them. That was the first time I locked the bathroom door just to cry. I should have left then. But you don't realize how deep you've sunk until someone shows you the surface. And I hadn't seen it in a long, long time. But I was about to, because 3 days later I found something in his nightstand that made my blood run cold. Something that changed everything. And after that, there was no going back. The thing I found in his nightstand wasn't some wild, scandalous bombshell like a secret phone or a wedding ring from a secret wife. No, it was way creepier than that. It was a journal. A full-on, leather-bound, meticulous journal about me. Not, Dear Diary, Lena made pancakes this morning, cute. I'm talking page after page of observations. Patterns. Lena tends to shut down during arguments. Giving her space for exactly 47 minutes works best. Use low voice when correcting her. She responds better to calm dominance. She's most affectionate after moments of high stress. Create, controlled. Conflict if emotional intimacy is low. Controlled. Conflict. I flipped through it shaking, my heart knocking around like a wasp trapped in a jar. At first I thought, maybe it's some therapy thing. Maybe his therapist told him to track our relationship or something. But then I saw the section titled, Behavior Reinforcement, Phase 3. Phase 3. There were phases. I was in a damn science experiment and didn't even know it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there beside him, staring at the ceiling while he snored like the world's most innocent man. I thought about every fight we'd ever had. Every moment that had left me crying and confused, only for him to swoop in right after with flowers or Thai takeout or, baby, I just want to help you feel safe. It wasn't care. It was conditioning. He was rewiring me like I was some broken appliance, and he was the only one with the instruction manual. I didn't say anything. Not at first. I needed to plan. I needed an exit. Quiet. Clean. I'd seen how he got when things didn't go his way. When someone pushed back. He wasn't loud. He wasn't violent. He was worse. Ben weaponized calm like it was a scalpel. You wouldn't even know you were bleeding until you were on the floor. So I started pretending. I smiled when he came home. I laughed at his dumb jokes. I let him guide me like usual. I even started cooking again. Because I needed time, just a little time. Enough to find a new place, stash my documents, and make a clean break. But then, I made a mistake. I left my laptop open, and when I came back from the shower, he was sitting at the table, staring at my screen, and guess what was up? Apartment listings. He looked up at me, calm, smiling, and all he said was, planning something, Lena? That's when I knew. He wasn't going to let me leave easily, and I wasn't safe anymore. The next morning, I woke up to my tires slashed. All 4, not just 1, 4. Which told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't random. This wasn't a bored kid or a freak accident. This was deliberate. This was a message, and I didn't need a return address to know where it came from. I stared at the car like it had personally betrayed me. My throat felt tight, and my brain went static. I walked back inside in a daze, clutching my keys like I was still going somewhere. Ben was at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, scrolling on his phone, calm as ever. You should really park somewhere safer, he said without looking up. A lot of weirdos out there. Weirdos. I nodded, sat across from him, and tried to match his energy like I wasn't shaking so hard my teeth could have cracked. He pushed a mug toward me. Figured you'd want some. Decaf. You've been wired lately. Wired lately. Like I was some faulty computer glitching just a little too much for his liking. I took the mug. I didn't drink it. I knew then I couldn't wait for the lease to end. Couldn't wait to find the perfect apartment, pack at my own pace, do things the safe, smart way. No, I needed out now. But when I went to grab my emergency credit card, the one I'd hidden inside an old lotion bottle at the back of the bathroom drawer, it was gone. Just an empty tube. Cap on. like nothing ever lived in there. My stomach dropped. I tore the drawer apart, checked the closet under the mattress. Even inside the vent in the wall I'd once joked about using for spy stuff, nothing. I walked out of the bathroom and saw him standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, watching me. "You lose something, Lena?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I told you before," he said, stepping closer. "You need to be more careful. You leave things lying around, and people might get the wrong idea. Like maybe you don't trust them." My mouth was dry. My voice came out in a whisper I barely recognized. "Where is it?" He smiled, tilted his head like a kindergarten teacher with a misbehaving child. "You don't need it. You've got me." That was the moment the fear settled in for real. Thick. Permanent. Not the shaky kind you feel during a horror movie. No, this was bone deep. Cold. Like the world had tilted slightly and I was the only one who noticed. Because it wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was control. Full spectrum. Quiet, clinical, and absolute. And I'd just discovered the lock, but he already had the key. I started hiding things in the most ridiculous places. A spare $20 inside an empty tampon wrapper. My ID slid behind the lining of an old purse I never used. A prepaid phone I bought in cash stuffed inside the box of a curling iron I never liked. It felt absurd, like I was living inside a spy movie written by someone with anxiety issues and trust problems. But what else was I supposed to do? Wait for him to accidentally reset my phone again because it was acting up. Ben, of course, kept playing the part of perfect partner. He cleaned the kitchen before I could, asked how my coworkers were, made dinner with my favorite wine even though I hadn't touched wine in months. He was practically vibrating with overcompensation, but that's what made it worse. The cheerfulness, the performative calm. Like if he smiled wide enough, I'd forget I was being caged with manners and morning smoothies. I tested little boundaries, just to see. I left a fork in the sink overnight. He washed it before I woke up and left a Post-it on the fridge that said, "You've been working hard. I got this." I left the bathroom mirror streaky. He cleaned it and left a new bottle of glass spray on the counter. I skipped our usual Friday movie night and said I was tired. He didn't argue, just said, "That's okay, babe. You deserve rest." Every kind gesture made my skin crawl. This wasn't love. This was surveillance with a side of passive-aggressive sainthood. Then came the necklace. It arrived in a little box, no card. A delicate silver chain with a tiny heart pendant. Pretty. Simple. Creepy as hell. I hadn't mentioned liking jewelry in over a year. "I thought it suited you," Ben said when I asked where it came from. "You've been pulling away lately. I just wanted you to feel close again." The pendant wasn't the creepy part. The creepy part was the tiny dot in the center, barely visible. I took it to work the next day and asked it if it could be a tracker. They laughed at first, then scanned it. It pinged. I didn't laugh. I never wore it again. But I put it back in the box, right where he left it, with a note that said, "I love it," in handwriting that looked too much like my old self, because if he knew I knew, that changed the game. And I wasn't ready to play on his level. Not yet. I never heard the code word, but I knew when the switch flipped. It happened on a Tuesday. Ben was late coming home, which almost never happened. He was a routine junkie. The kind of guy who could tell you the exact minute his toast popped every morning. So, when 6:30 turned into 7 o'clock, turned into 9:12 with no text, no call, I started hoping something had happened to him, and immediately hated myself for it. When he finally walked in, he wasn't carrying groceries or smelling like takeout. He didn't kiss me on the cheek or mention traffic. He just walked past me, silent, straight to the bedroom, and slammed the door. I stood there, stunned. Not because of the door slam, but because of what followed. Silence. For 23 straight minutes. Then, the door opened, and he smiled, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just given me 23 of the most nerve-shredding minutes of my life. "You okay?" I managed. He laughed. Why wouldn't I be? That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with a man anymore. I was dealing with an idea. Something that thought of me as a project, a system to be managed, a bug to be fixed. And he had updated the software. That week, he started standing behind me when I cooked. Not helping, not saying anything, just watching. Close enough that I could feel his breath, but not close enough to accuse. He stopped locking the bathroom door when he peed, but started locking it when I was inside. He moved the router. I didn't notice at first, until my devices started glitching in that weird, controlled way. Email lagging just when I needed it. Calls dropping only when I tried to reach certain contacts. And then, he set a new alarm on my phone. One I couldn't delete. It went off every morning at 5:17 a.m. with one word on the screen. Grateful? It wasn't a question. It was a threat wrapped in a greeting. I tried to factory reset my phone. Didn't work. I tried to swap SIMs. He switched it back while I was asleep. I tried to leave the apartment and stay at a friend's. He called her before I got there and said I was going through a paranoid episode. She texted me, worried I was off my meds. I've never taken meds. But Ben planted that seed. And now? I was officially the unreliable narrator in my own story. I went back to the apartment that night not because I believed him, but because I realized the worst thing wasn't that he wanted control. The worst thing was how good he was at making sure no one believed me when I said I'd lost it. I started walking home from work instead of taking the bus. It wasn't about the exercise. It was about time. About claiming 40 minutes a day where I didn't have to pretend to be okay, where no one was watching my facial expressions like a stock ticker. I'd pop in my headphones, play a podcast I barely listened to, and just breathe. Ben still picked me up on Thursdays, because Thursday dinners are tradition, Lena. And you know how important consistency is for people like you, people like me. That's how he talked now, like I was a demographic, a case file, something he was managing. That Thursday, I got in the car and didn't say much. I didn't have the energy to do the usual pretend girlfriend routine. I just stared out the window and tried to focus on the street signs, like if I memorized enough of them, I could escape with nothing but memory and a backpack. "You seem off," he said, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel like a therapist pretending to be casual. "Something wrong at work?" I shook my head. "Just tired." He nodded slowly. "You should take better care of yourself. You've been neglecting your routine. You're better when you stick to structure." Better. Like I was a maintenance schedule. Dinner was exactly what I expected. Salmon, steamed vegetables, and that weird little speech he gave every time about how fueling the body properly keeps the mind sharp. It was rehearsed, down to the pauses, like he was trying to remind me who the smart one was. I never forgot. But here's the thing. That night, I played along. I asked about his day, laughed at his joke about the passive-aggressive guy at his gym, offered to do the dishes, and when he finally let his guard down enough to go take a shower, I pulled the prepaid phone out of my boot, locked myself in the coat closet, and made the first call. Not to the cops. Not yet. I called Danny. Danny, who'd moved across town 6 months ago after her own breakup with a guy who couldn't take no without a tantrum. Danny, who had once said, "Girl, if anything ever goes sideways, I've got a futon, a Costco membership, and zero judgment." She picked up on the first ring. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I just said, "Is that offer still good?" And she said, "I'll come get you right now." That's when I knew I had an exit. Not a perfect one. Not a plan with color-coded folders and 3-step backups, but a way out. And sometimes that's all you need to remember who you are, even if you're still pretending, for now. I didn't pack a suitcase. That would have been too obvious, too loud, too traceable. Instead, I packed like I was going to the gym, or maybe a weekend work thing. Just my laptop, charger, a hoodie, some basics, and that prepaid phone duct-taped under the insole of my sneakers in case he started checking pockets. The plan was simple. Leave Friday morning, tell him I had an early client meeting, and never come back. But then, Thursday night happened. We were watching some crime doc, Ben's favorite genre, ironically, and out of nowhere he says, "You ever wonder what would happen if you disappeared?" I blinked. "What?" He smiled like it was small talk. I mean, not in a creepy way. Just, how long would it take for someone to notice? I laughed, or tried to. "You mean like, if I got kidnapped or something?" He didn't blink, or just walked away. I stared at the screen, pretending I didn't feel my entire spine lock up. He reached over, took my hand, kissed the knuckles. "You know I'd notice, right?" Right away. I nodded. He went back to watching TV like he hadn't just casually threatened to notice everything. I couldn't sleep that night. Every creak in the walls sounded like footsteps. Every car outside made me think he'd hired someone to follow me. I laid there, counting ceiling tiles, telling myself to breathe and not react. He hadn't seen the bag. He didn't know, right? But in the morning, my bag was gone. Not moved. Gone. I opened the closet, and it just wasn't there. No duffel, no laptop, not even my sneakers. And on the bed, where my bag should have been, a note. "I moved your things. You shouldn't carry so much weight, emotionally or otherwise. Let's talk tonight." I sat on the floor, just sat there, shaking, hands numb. He knew. I didn't know how or when or what tipped him off, but he knew. And worse, he was still calm, still playing house, still wearing that damn smile like a costume he never took off. So I texted Danny from the prepaid. "Change of plans. Emergency. Meet me at the gas station on 4th and Green. 20 minutes. Don't knock. Just wait." I didn't care if he saw me leave without a bag. I just needed to leave alive. I shoved my wallet into my bra, pulled on an old hoodie, and walked out like I was just taking a phone call. I didn't run. I didn't look back. Because if I did, I knew he'd be standing there, watching, smiling. And if I saw that smile one more time, I might have never made it out. Danny didn't ask questions. Not at first. She just leaned across the console of her little Honda Civic, handed me an iced coffee, and said, "You're safe now." It was the kind of sentence you don't realize you need until you hear it. I hadn't even known how badly I needed to feel safe. Like actually, physically safe, until I sat in her passenger seat and didn't have to pretend to smile. We didn't talk much during the drive. I kept thinking I'd start crying, like in the movies, but nothing came. No tears, no breakdown, no breathless monologue about everything I'd been through. Just silence, heavy but not hostile, like my body was still buffering reality. Her apartment was small but warm, the kind of place where nothing matched and everything had a story. She gave me clean sweats, pointed to the bathroom, and said, Shower, eat, nap, the basics. We'll debrief when you're human again. And God, that shower. It was the first one in months where I didn't feel like I had to keep one ear tuned for footsteps. I stood there until the water turned lukewarm and the mirror fogged up completely. It felt stupidly monumental, like reclaiming a piece of myself one steam cloud at a time. Afterward, Danny made grilled cheese like it was a ritual. She put on some mindless baking show and sat beside me on the couch, both of us wrapped in blankets like war survivors pretending we were just tired coworkers. Eventually I started talking, slowly, just snippets. The security questions on my accounts? He changed them, answered them with his memories, not mine. She blinked. What does that even mean? I tried to reset my email password once. One of the questions was, where did you meet your partner? And the answer was the restaurant he picked. I didn't even realize how messed up that was until I said it out loud. She didn't say anything, just leaned over and gently bumped her shoulder against mine. That night I slept for almost 12 hours straight. No cameras, no random 5:17 a.m. alarms, no shadow under the door, just quiet. And when I woke up, the silence didn't scare me. It comforted me, because for the first time in forever, I wasn't under surveillance. I was just Lena, sleeping on a borrowed couch wrapped in a thrifted blanket that smelled like lavender dryer sheets and garlic bread. And that felt like freedom. The first message came at 6:03 a.m. You left your vitamins, don't forget your health. No greeting, no name. But I knew exactly who it was from. I didn't respond. Danny had helped me get a new number, a new email, even wiped my laptop clean just in case. But the message came through an unknown number. Burner phone, probably. He was adapting, of course. Ben always adapted. By noon, he'd sent 3 more. I understand, I forgive you. It's hard to start over when you don't know who you are without me. You've made your point, come home. We can fix this. That last one almost made me throw up. We can fix this. Like he wasn't the reason I had to sneak out like a fugitive in my own life. Danny saw me staring at my phone and gently took it from my hand. She didn't even read the screen, just powered it off and set it face down on the table. You need to stop giving him access to your nervous system, she said. I laughed, bitter. He already mapped it, like a territory. The real unraveling happened 2 days later. That's when I found the envelope under Danny's welcome mat. Inside, a photo of me from 2 nights ago, sitting on her balcony, sipping tea. In the background, blurry but unmistakable, Ben's car, parked half a block down. There was no note. He didn't need one. The message was clear. I know where you are. I see you. I couldn't breathe. I showed Danny. Her jaw tightened. Okay, we call the police. It's harassment, stalking, trespassing, maybe worse. I wanted to agree. I wanted to believe that was the move. But all I could think was, he hadn't touched me. Not in a way you could measure. Not in bruises or property damage. Just pressure, presence, precision. He played chess while I was still learning checkers. So I sat down, took a breath, and for the first time since I left, I asked a terrifying question out loud. What if he doesn't want me back? Danny blinked. What do you mean? What if he just wants to prove I can't escape? That even when I leave, I'm still his? Just in exile instead of in the house? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because we both knew. Ben didn't chase out of love. He chased out of ego. And if I didn't end this soon, I'd spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for his shadow to catch up. And I was done living in shadows. Even if that meant setting fire to everything he ever touched. I didn't wait for another message. I didn't wait for him to escalate, because I knew Ben. He never acted without planning 3 steps ahead. If I didn't move now, the next thing he sent might not be a photo. It might be him. So I filed the report. Stalking, harassment, digital intrusion. I brought printouts, screenshots, timestamps. I even handed over the little silver heart necklace he gave me, the one with the tracker. Danny came with me. She didn't say much, just squeezed my hand during the parts where my voice shook. Like when I described the bag he took, the locked bathroom, the messages about my vitamins. The officer nodded slowly, scribbling notes. You said he never hit you? I smiled tight. No, he doesn't need to. He studies pressure points, just not the physical kind. That night, I slept again, but lighter this time. Every creak in the floor, every passing car still made my muscles tense, but it wasn't terror anymore. It was readiness. The difference between bracing for a storm and preparing for it. A few days later, a restraining order was filed. Temporary, but something. Danny changed her locks, installed cameras. I stopped going online altogether. It felt weird at first, being invisible, like erasing myself from a place I'd once felt seen. But the silence? It became power. And then, 2 weeks after filing the report, I got the call. Ben had tried to file a missing persons report, claimed I was unstable, said he feared I was a danger to myself and needed emergency wellness intervention. They asked him one question. Are you her legal guardian or emergency contact? He said yes. They checked. He wasn't. I had already changed it, to me. And that somehow broke him more than anything else. Not the police, not the restraining order, not even me leaving. It was the idea that I had reclaimed ownership of my own existence, that I'd rewritten the paperwork of my life without his permission. The last message I ever got from him came in the form of silence. No more texts, no more shadows, no more envelopes. He was done because I had closed the loop he'd always used to get back in. Weeks passed. I got a new job, a cheap apartment with creaky floors and too much sunlight. Danny helped me build an IKEA bookshelf that wobbled but didn't fall. And one morning, sipping coffee in socks that didn't match, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for the other shoe to drop, not for him to knock, not for someone to save me. I had walked out with nothing but a prepaid phone and a breath I didn't know I was allowed to take. But it was enough. Because sometimes survival isn't running, it's staying. It's saying, this is mine now. My name, my life, my silence, my noise. And he doesn't get to touch any of it ever again.